Hi Art 200 class, my name is Victoria and my investigative object project is based off of Male and Female by Jackson Pollock, made in 1942 and part of the abstract expressionism movement. My thesis for my project is Jackson Pollock's painting Male and Female presents both the significance of duplicity and separation of gender roles simultaneously. I think that this is the purpose of the painting because of its striking nature and the fact that it kind of contradicts itself with the stark, contrasting, vibrant colors and mysteriously ambiguous figures. This was a particularly pressing issue at the time as women were fighting to be on more equal footing with men in the workforce, sometimes out of necessity because they were needed to build machinery and collect supplies for the war effort because the men were off at war and they needed people to fill those jobs. This is also around the time that Pollock met his future wife, Lee Krasner, who's another artist, a feminist artist, and had to deal with the separate quirks that each gender possessed. Pollock uses the elements in his painting to create a cohesive contradiction of the different similarities found in men and women. Now, before this painting was made, there was a collecting of a group of artists in New York, mainly European ones. I think Pollock was one of the only ones who was from America, and they were studying surrealist techniques and psycho-automatism, which is the exploration of the unconscious mind through art. They played a game where there were like random body parts on cards, and they would put them together and make these androgynous monsters, which, as you can see here, kind of influence male and female. I think it's one of the main influences for it, because they're like humanoid, but they're like not complete. They are a little monstrous in nature. Two of the most likely motives behind the painting involve psychology and feminism and gender equality. In psychology, hermaphrodite is a symbol of a creative union of opposites. Artists especially were subconsciously battling between the male and female parts of their artistic persona and their psyche that create unity in art. For feminism, like I said, he met Lee Krasner before this was made, so she could have influenced his view on the women's rights movement and pushed him to be more feminist, not like directly, like, yeah, go, but like influenced his art to relate to gender equality more. Composition-wise, the lining of this, like the front panels that are all straight up and down, like vertical ones, I thought were symbolic of the rigidity of society, and it's kind of stuck in its ways with traditional gender roles. And then the more fluid, artistic, squiggly lines in the background are Pollock's wanting to challenge those perceptions and change things with the women's rights movement. As far as shapes go, there's a bunch of like geometric shapes for the heads, and there's 3 diamonds in the middle, which are kind of random, but they're not completely discernible as human. They're more their shapes. And then there's numbers in here, which I think could be symbolic of how men didn't think that women could have careers in things pertaining to logic, like math and science. And for still going on shapes, there's a debate about whether this is like a phallic object or a fetus in the womb, whether this is a phallus. Both figures have breasts, so it's unclear if they're male or female or both. There's still a lot of debate about that. The colors are like really contrasting, but they end up being harmonious. They're mainly primary colors. There's some green too, and then black and white. So it definitely, the color scheme places emphasis on the front of it, so the emphasis is on the figures right here mainly. Although the background is still really intricate, it's de-emphasized by like the blue has a calmer color as opposed to like the red and yellow, which are striking, and on the black especially. And Pollock actually associated red with the male and yellow with the female, which makes this more confusing because if you can see, like, there's red and yellow in both figures, so it also hints at the fact that neither of them really have a gender, they're just both. So I have 2 related works for my project. Neither of them are really gender based because I couldn't find anything that was like close enough to male and female to compare it, but they have the same like composition. Actually, the first one came from the biography I read about Pollock, and it's what his painting male and female is kind of based off of, conceptually, like the basic structure of it. So this is Striped by Kandinsky. I cannot pronounce his first name, and I'm so sorry about that. But it has, the 5 panels that are black and white with the colorful foreground. He uses more rainbow colors and has geometric perfection, sort of. Like none of his, if you see in Pollock's, like his are kind of like not perfect lining and stuff, but Kandinsky prided himself on having the perfect shapes. Also, none of Kandinsky's forms are very humanoid, except for like this helmet, but it's just the helmet doesn't really represent a person. He didn't put people in his work. I think that Pollock's use of this to base his painting off of was kind of like, it was kind of respectful in a way, but it was also kind of a stab at Kandinsky's work, because he took the basic aspects of it and deconstructed it to his style, and he didn't really, from what I've read, it didn't seem like he approved of Kandinsky's lack of emotion in his works. Like, they weren't about the inner workings of his mind or political issues, which is kind of what Kandinsky's based more off of. And then the second work I have is from our book. It's The City by Fernand Léger, made in 1919. I also picked this for its stylistic aspects that are like male and female, and the fact that it was around a war period. This is made right after the end of World War I, when the economic boom happened and urbanization was a big thing. People were moving to cities for job opportunities. You can sort of feel the stress of bustling city life, and the chaos ensued with like the contrasting colors that are really bright and like represent signs, but there's also black and white in the background that look like city windows and stuff, but the contrast also indicates chaos, and everything's really close, which kind of relates to the move from rural to urban life, how everyone's just kind of boxed in, especially after World War I, because there wasn't enough housing built yet for the big boom of urbanization that happened. Also, his figures have a kind of ambiguity about them. You can tell they're male, but they're just like black colors. They don't have facial features at all, so that kind of makes them ambiguous too, and which also relates to city life, where people weren't as individualized because there were so many of them. Although neither of these represent gender roles, they stylistically, I thought, we could relate them to male and female pretty well. None of these tackle the issue of gender division like Pollock's male and female. The fact that art analysts still debate over which figure is the male and which is the female in his painting, or whether either of them are really either, only adds to the effect of this work in making people question stereotypes and traditional gender roles. His work accurately depicts the chaos that ensues when one tries to find a balance between two clashing similarities that should work together cohesively but are just different enough not to. And here is my works cited. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.